Hey, welcome guys. Today's session, we'll get started. There's a few more joining, but we can begin. So I'm Luke. I'm a founder of CraftedUX, where we run a range of webinars and courses and events around UX, trying to give the most up-to-date insights on how to design, how to use tools, how to work with AI, and the list of the UX kind of skills and processes that exist. So today we're going to go through a webinar on design strategy and how you can power that by using AI tools, which is a really exciting new realm to design right now. I think everyone's probably using these tools in some way. Today I'll give a bit of background into how you can use them in your design process. We'll talk a lot about research and strategic research and when to bring that into certain projects. And then we'll have a chance at the end today to go through any questions with a Q&A session that you can just pop the question in the chat. We'll have about 5 to 10 minutes to go through at the end of today. But I'll just kick off by sharing my screen. And the presentation will last about 30 minutes or so. We'll have 10 minutes for questions and then maybe a little bit more over on time. Great, okay. So as I mentioned, we'll be going over a few different areas. So quick intro from myself. Going over a background of why we run research and how we can make it as strategic as possible. We'll go through some AI-powered research tools that are very popular in the industry right now. We'll go through some specific demos, so actual workflows that you can start using from tomorrow that are very tangible. And then we'll go into how you can scale maybe an insights library for yourself. If you're a sole designer, if you're working in a small team or even a big team, these learnings should be able to apply to you. And then we'll just finish today with some sharing some upcoming events we have and some offers from Crafted. So to begin with, what is design strategy? So strategy essentially connects why you are designing something with what you're designing and how it drives value for users and the business. And design strategy has become more and more important in what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. A designer sits very close to a product manager, and that's something that we really want to try and build as a skill set and look for in designers when I'm hiring as well in other teams and so on. So the strategic view of how you can help the business with your design work, your features and so on. So it really is a disciplined approach around business goals, needs and technical realities to drive measurable and long-term value. So you're going to be working on projects as of now, but you want them to have impact repeatedly into the future and make them almost future-proof with the work you're doing. Because design and engineering and product management, they're expensive amount of time everyone's put into projects. So you want to make sure we have a good return on investment from that work. And today there'll be a range of different people on this call with different ranges of experience. So I'll start at the bottom and I'll work my way up to some more specific examples. So that's sort of the structure of how we'll go through these sessions today. People in different circumstances, I know, working freelance, working in small teams or large teams, but all these learnings you should be able to apply in your specific use cases. So design strategy is really about the why and the what. It's about the long-term impact of what you're designing, scalability, how you're using design components, design systems, and how you're really solving the problem for the business. How you can align stakeholders as well, and connecting that back to the business value. Design execution, on the other hand, is a bit more further down the timeline. So it's focusing more on the how, more on the near-term deliverables, and involves more wireframes and more delivery-based work around visuals and interaction designs and so on. So strategy is what we're going to look at more today. The execution is something that we'll cover in future sessions. So just to begin with, an overview of research. So we have strategic and tactical. Depending on the time you have in your use cases, will be when you apply them. We also have research planning and execution, which we'll go through in a little bit more detail. We'll talk through some AI techniques, and then how to synthesize that data with some tools like Notebook GM from Google to save you a lot of time and do a high quality of research overall, which is exciting for yourself and exciting for the business and the colleagues that you're working with. So firstly, strategic research is more around long-term, as I mentioned. It's looking at things like new markets, different user segments, and really unpacking the complex problem space. So if you're working for, let's just say you're a designer within Airbnb, you're working across global markets, different types of users for different ranges of properties, and many different complex problems in there to unpick. it's normally going to be something that's higher impact, but will take a lot of time to get right, and rightly so. Some of these projects can take many, many months, quarters, and even half a year in some cases. A tactical research, on the other hand, is a bit more specific. It's a little bit more closed, shall we say, as a problem space. So if it's optimizing a certain screen or a conversion funnel, it has a clear scope. So you can actually focus and get into those design outcomes a lot quicker. You can build and learn, and I'll give you some examples of tactical versus strategic and when you should apply either, because they're both very useful in your week-to-week design tasks. So strategic as an example would be, let's just say you wanted to identify what current customer segments are for your business and how you could effectively market and target to those customers to help increase your overall acquisition rates. So let's just say Airbnb want to go into a new type of customer segment, let's say it's students. You want to understand that segment in more detail and see how that compares to the needs of your current segments. On the tactical side, again, this is more closed. So if you're looking at specific pain points of a type of persona, and maybe it's just part of the funnel, so completing that onboarding journey, and you might be looking at an A/B test on a specific onboarding flow or task that you're doing. So that's a lot more tactical, it's a lot more focused, and it's a lot more shorter on a time perspective. So just to refine that on a tactical basis, it's more short term, it's narrower scope, and it's a lot more iterative, using your hypothesis-based approach and seeing to learn and build on each time. We've just gone through an example, but another one even more specific would be looking at copy changes, running A/B or multivariate tests to see which different version performs the best. And again, that would be more of a tactical approach. From a strategic side, this again is more broader, as we talked about already, it's more exploratory. This is obviously part of a designer's or researcher's remit. Depending on the size of your team, it might be more of a designer's role to take on with the product manager. But really you're looking at how you can build high impact decisions and insights and share them across the business. So another example here of strategic would be if a company might want to conduct some research to understand the Gen Z market, understanding if they need to build a brand new product line for them, if let's just say it's a banking app to fit that demographic, or if does their current product actually fit what they're looking for and they don't need to outlay that cost up front, which would be a win. But again, that's one example. So we'll go into how we can use AI in these shortly, but I'm just setting the foundation of the types of research to start with. And then how you can bring that to life is obviously creating some goals around your research, selecting the right methods, if it's interviews, if it's surveys, if it's card sorting, any type of UX approach there. Recruiting, if you're running that through certain sites, so if you're doing it on your own, then reaching out to users, and then you're creating that timeline around the whole project to keep it on track, which is really important. So yeah, overall it'll deliver you improved efficiency, high stakeholder confidence, you'll have less back and forth if you're covering that straight away. You'll have actionable recommendations off the back of those, and you'll have reliable insights based on data, which is the main thing. And lastly, just around defining clear research goals. So for any research that you're going to undertake, it's really important to be clear on what you're trying to solve, understanding the scope of it, and what's possible in the time that you have. So yeah, be specific and actionable, frame your questions as much as possible, and connect it to business needs. So if the overall, let's say, goal for the business is to increase acquisition of customers, that's what you should maybe aim it towards. If it's around increasing overall spend or overall count, or your basket size, then you might want to look at optimizing more conversion funnels and so on. So it always leads back to what those KPIs are. This is just one example of example research flow that you could go through, taking a week for planning, a week for recruitment, and then running into the data collection, analysis, and reporting. A lot of this can be done automatically now with AI, and I'll go into using ChatGPT, using other tools like Notebook, and yeah, other ways to basically surface that information and summarize it in a quicker way, which is great. And lastly, on the problem space, so we've talked about researching and solving business needs and user needs, but the next part of that is making sure that you frame the problem in the right way. So these are just some techniques and frameworks that are quite popular in the industry right now that you might have used before, but ways that you can, again, frame it to your teams So if it's using the how might we framework, so asking every kind of problem statement, how might we solve X? Also using the 5 whys to uncover the real need behind and the real problem. So asking why for each level down of that customer pain point. And then you have problem storming, which is very similar to brainstorming around those known problems, pain points that could be coming from surveys, NPS feedback, could be coming from App Store reviews, or just general research and interviews that you've started with. Assumption mapping is also a very valuable way to do this. So again, up front, plotting those pain points and those feedbacks, understanding with the team what you think is a high or a low risk assumption, and ideally you're looking to validate those. There is sometimes when you're in small teams, you haven't got time to run loads of interviews because you have 101 things to do, which is fine, as long as you agree as a team and prioritize the assumptions you want to validate. Then you're all aligned as a group and you can sort of rate your confidence against that. Surveys are great for just checking this with low amount of effort and normally getting a high amount of quant data there. So that's something that I would always recommend. And again, some of the outputs of that is creating your experience maps, which you can document that research and have it as a shareable artifact to kind of pass around your team and your organization. Again, there's some really useful tools out there right now, which I'll share at the end, to create automated experience maps, because this is quite time consuming as a task historically. But now you can look to generate this, again, even using ChatGPT or other tools to get that kind of customer journey brought to life. And yeah, overall the checklist. So these are the things that you should look to go through. Make sure it's user-centered, business aligned, clear actionable steps based in data, and making sure it's really approaching that root cause of the problem and not just the symptom. Great, so that's a bit of an overview of the strategic research side of things to kind of frame what we're going to go through next, which is around how you can use AI and the tools that are available today to solve problems in your day-to-day as a designer, as a researcher, as a content writer. And actually be really interesting at this point. So feel free to put into the chat what your current role is. So if you're a designer, a researcher, content writer, if you're even a marketer or an engineer, interested to see where your kind of role and skill sits. And then maybe if you could put in how many years of experience you have. Again, it just helps, again, tailor the content that I can share with you guys to have the most impact. So be interesting to have a look. So firstly, around AI enhanced market analysis, there's a few different tools and ways that this is changing in the market. So the first one is around how you can automate competitor monitoring. So there's tools like Crayon or Brandwatch, which can essentially scan competitors' sites, look at pricing information, look at product updates and releases, current campaigns. So within minutes, you can get a really clear understanding of your competitive landscape, and that can go into your initial research. And it's going to help you move forward faster in your project straight away. So again, quite a manual process historically, but with these tools, it's going to help you speed that up a lot more. The next one's around sentiment analysis. So how you can kind of take that funnel of feedback that you have, if it's from surveys, if it's from reviews, if it's from interviews, plug that into ChatGPT or NotebookLM. Get some summaries of the sentiments and the themes that are coming up and the positives and the negatives. And again, that can help you prioritize quite quickly into the areas that need the most help. So again, really powerful, saving a lot of time. I spent years of my career looking through research, spending hours upon hours and putting those themes together, whereas now we can do it in minutes, which is sort of really life-changing for that part of the process. And it helps you focus more on solving that UX problem and working on the design side of things, the craft, which again is the more enjoyable part. The last one's around sort of identifying opportunities. So looking at market trends outwardly using AI. So again, ChatGPT or Claude is good platforms to do this with. So understanding what gaps, what differentiators there might be that are unmet versus your product or your area. So yeah, as an example, at the bottom, you've got AI can analyze 10,000 app stores and to review the highlights. Might be things around performance, might be things about navigation, but instantly you're getting that feedback and then you can act on it. What's also very useful right now is personas. So personas are normally a core part of any project of a sizable sort of group. You've got to have core users, primary and secondary users. So what you can do is then add into some of these language models like ChatGPT, and say, look, well, this is our user, this is their type of behaviors. It can create you a assisted persona based on those insights that you might have, again, taken from interviews or transcripts. So it can do that automatically for you. You can integrate survey data in there to, again, summarize that information. And then you can obviously refine it after that as you go through. But it's going to save you, again, a lot of time. It's going to be a great artifact to share with the rest of your team. And then just some examples of how you can apply that is just going to ChatGPT, typing in or importing that survey data or whatever data you have on your users, and it can create you an instant persona, which you can put into your portfolios, you can put into your projects. And then even beyond that, you can further prompt to have a PDF that's exportable. You can ask it to be more visually appealing. So this is just an example that I exported earlier based on a persona. Again, it took only a matter of minutes. It's really important to check this information before you obviously export the final copy. These language models can hallucinate, so they can make errors and they can kind of stretch the truth. So it's always great sort of process to review whatever it's suggesting to you, and it also helps you absorb that information. So we're not quite there with the current accuracy in these models, but they're getting better and better. But I would always advise to double check before you're exporting. And just some other ways of AI tools before we go into some demos. So automated transcripts, that obviously things like Grain and Otter, when you're running your interviews, that can summarize those themes. You've got tagging and you've got clustering, which again are just ways that you can group that information in a clear way to share with your teams and to act on your recommendations and things like that. Other behavioral insights using AI, there's tools like HubSpot, FullStory and Hotjar, who are basically around behavioral analytics. They now have their own AI features. So if it's summarizing sessions that it's recording, see consistent behavior, again, that's helping you save a lot of time and base your recommendations on those. A lot of these accounts have free signups and trials to begin with. So if you haven't used them, I'd recommend you start sort of downloading them, playing them, applying them to your product where you can. If you're in a team that doesn't use analytics too much, then it's always great to try and influence the team and have these products set up, because you'll have a lot more insight on what's going on your product when you can see users moving around. So this is going to help surface the critical insights. It can help prioritize them as well, and it helps with really quick targeting of what's going wrong. If it's performance issues, if it's usability issues, navigation, whatever it might be, this is really good tools to do that for. Great, so we're now going to go into some AI platforms and demos. So we're going to go into a bit more of the tangibles of how you can use these platforms. So we're going to go through 4 in total today. There is way more that you could do, but these are from what we get back feedback-wise from other teams and surveys that we run at Crafted. These are kind of the most popular ones right now, and they're definitely ones that can help you in your design process and the teams that you might work in. We've run through these in a lot more detail in some of the courses we run, and some of the coaching that we do to help with workflows and prompts and all those kind of templates. So today we're going to start with discovery. We'll do ChatGPT to show you an example there. We'll then do a bit of synthesis using Notebook LM, so looking at research and summarizing it. Then we'll look at user flows, so a bit more of a UX process there, how you can use a tool called Whimsical, which is great for this. And then finally, rapid prototyping using Figma Make, and also Lovable, who is also a great tool right now. So without further ado, this just gives a bit of an overview of how the design process has changed with AI now in the picture. I think maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, it was quite set the tools you'd use as a designer. You would use your Miros for workshops, you would use your Figma for designing, you would run your market research through Google and so on. Now there is a tool for every step of that design process. So I'd encourage you all to look at these moving forward. And if you're not using them already or haven't experimented, then it's going to really help supercharge your workflows. But ideally, you want to have one of those in each of these steps. So we're going to go through the discover first. There'll be some around definition, and then there'll be some more on delivery that we can do in future sessions as well. So the first example we're going to go through is using ChatGPT as a way to help understand how you might optimize a payment flow, or let's say a purchase flow for a pair of trainers. So you're working as a designer for an e-commerce company, let's just say Nike for this example. your goal is to increase click to pay from 20 to 28%, and also look to how you can increase the average order size by 10% of the basket. So a pretty standard, let's say, a business problem or kind of need to solve for the KPIs. So I'm going to go through how you might use ChatGPT to help you get sort of forward in the initial way to solve this problem. So the first prompt that I've added into ChatGPT is, can you help optimize or come up with ideas to help click to pay conversion for an e-commerce site that purchasing a new pair of trainers? So instantly it's giving some suggestions to themes of what you could look to do, like streamline the checkout flow, optimize the payment process, use more payment providers, and use things like progressive disclosure, those kind of suggestions, which is a great start. But you can add more detail here. So you can even add in a URL, picks up the exact page that you're looking at, and it can give even more targeted information on how it could optimize that flow. So that's already a step forward in it's suggesting using trust queues, social proofing, and looking specifically now at the actual funnel of that page from bag to shipping to payment to review. So it's becoming more and more detailed, which is great for me to take forward. So from that prompt 2 on the left-hand side, it's given a summary table of some of those themes. Then if I wanted to go through and ask even more, what do you think would have the highest impact? So what do they think, based on all the data that they have, would have the highest impact of hitting those results of increasing conversion? So they're suggesting that to streamline the checkout and make it more prominent is one more way to do that. To reduce abandonment rates, and to also use things like urgency messages. So let's just say 2 left in your size is put a suggestion there. So you can see within a space of a couple of minutes, I've put in a few prompts, I've given it an exact kind of context, and it's given back some really useful suggestions for me to take forward as a designer into my initial ideation with my team, come up with initial kind of concepts and prototypes. Just from using ChatGPT as kind of your first go-to way at that discovery phase. So many other ways that you can apply that, but that's one way that you could start with using that tool. The next one is one that is probably one of my favorite tools right now. So it's called NotebookLM. So when you're running, let's say, qualitative research that's conducted by a designer, maybe yourself or someone in the team, let's just say for this use case, you're looking to increase the number of events websites created, and the product that you're working on is around setting up events, so similar to Meetup as such. And you want to try and increase, let's say, the month 1 retention of users to sign up and stay there. So what NotebookLM is really good at is, once you've run your research interviews, just uploading those transcripts into the tool. It gives an instant summary of those themes and tags them if you want to search back to them. And then it creates a clear summary, which again, you could share with your team, yourself, and you can go back and prompt a few times to get a better, more accurate summary if you want. The next stage, what it does create is things like mind maps, so really useful to group information and see where those insights are coming from. In a more interactive way. So we've used this in our teams before. We've run sessions using these mind maps, and then we've also exported some of that information using the podcast feature. So you can ask it to export a summary of all the research, and it will create a 10-minute podcast. It could be a 2-way conversation or a 1-way conversation, but it's a really interesting way to get that information across to your team, different way to absorb it, and one that we've seen as a much higher interaction rate when we are sharing a podcast, as opposed to just sharing a written summary or some slides. So it's really changed the way that we share our learnings, and has had really good feedback from teams. And I've also had the same from other teams in the design industry. The next one we'll go into is Whimsical. So Whimsical AI, so this is more around user flows. So once you've got that clearer view of the problem, you're looking to build out that initial journey. So the brief here is, let's say we want to improve the onboarding feature or create one for a finance banking app, and the success metrics are around increasing the number of accounts created and reducing the bounce rate throughout that process of onboarding, and also to increase the data that we get from our users. So Whimsical AI is really useful in the sense of it can import an initial user flow, or you can add it into the AI engine that you have in there. So you can give it the prompt that I've just given it, or just put on this page around improving the onboarding feature for a banking app. It's creating these instantly within Miro or in Figma flows is also a way you can do that. So this is an example. So you can go into the AI feature, click on flowchart, type in your prompt, gives you an AI generated user flow with decision points, which again, you can prompt a little bit more and refine if you need to. And then you can also export it as a sequence diagram, which is on the right-hand side. So if you're looking at a bit more of a technical view of, let's just say, the APIs, the front end, the back end interactions, and any database calls, it will give some initial suggestions for those. So really powerful in those early discussions with engineers and PMs of what do we need to consider when we're designing this feature. So it helps you understand those edge cases very early. Yes, they still aren't completely comprehensive, but again, it gets you that from 0 to 50% very quickly, and then you can take that forward at your own means. There's also a very good feature in Miro AI. So if you're looking at going to that next stage of prototyping, again, using the prompts in there, and then again, this is around a banking app, but creating that onboarding flow, you can see on the right-hand side, that's based on the technical sequence that is suggested to me earlier on. So it's connecting those dots of user flow to prototype, which again is a really powerful step to getting early feedback from users and creating that as a suggestion of a prototype. So now taking that another step further into rapid prototyping. So let's just say you've got kind of the context, you've got the UX decision you want to put across and the improvements. Now you want to build it into something to get some user feedback. So this example here is, let's just say you wanted to build a new events timeline for a feature that is around wedding planning. And the main goal here is to help try and increase your month one retention. So you could start to use ChatGPT for some ideas, but if you want something a little more visual, Figma makes a great tool for that. So the prompt here I've just added in is based on the description of the feature. I've given it some guidance on the time lengths. It's given some suggestions on the features and the main parts of the flow. That's created the first prototype, as you can see in front of you. It's not quite interactive enough as I wanted, so I've given further prompts around editing tasks, saving and updating information. So that's now been added, which is great. And then you can obviously keep going through those prompts. Everyone's probably used these tools already, but there's a few different ways of just prompting that I'll share after in a bit of a worksheet that's really effective in getting there quickly. Another really good tool is Lovable AI. So similar to Figma Make, but a little bit more detailed in some of the prototyping it gives you. So it has a brainstorming chat feature where you can go back and forth and refine your prompts before actually pushing them to the model and putting them into the generate phase. So again, it's kind of using that as your PM to go back and forth and refine the concepts before actually creating them, which is a useful feature. So here you can see on the top, I've put a prompt in for creating an onboarding flow for a banking app. And then after a few chat prompts, it's turned into more of a dashboard, more insights, a lot more dynamic from the suggestions it's given me. Obviously, much faster feedback cycles than obviously working in your teams. Ones that you can also show and document the prompts that you've added to get there. It shows your sort of your thinking and your working. And again, this example here is just a bit more gamification added to that as an example, which is added in some ideas. But what this essentially does is it really transforms prototyping, because in Figma, it does take a lot of time to knit up those prototypes. The way that we're using them in our teams right now, and other ones that I've heard from the community, is great for rapid prototyping, going from 0 to 40, getting feedback before going into those initial designs in Figma. So yeah, you're prompting them, you can edit them, you can work with engineers on that side. You can't quite export the coded version into Figma as a file, which is a little bit of a limitation right now, but it's probably going to be something that's going to come in the future. But yeah, if you haven't used those tools, check them out, they're really useful. The last one here is that you can actually embed user flows. So the ones I've gone from Whimsical and from Miro, you can embed that into the Lovable or Figma Make, and it will take that into a prototype, which is very powerful. So again, you can see the step-by-step flows of that onboarding sequence. So now just going to talk about scaling research libraries. So that's a lot of different tools that you could use in practical ways. Once you've, I guess, gathered that feedback from users, quantitative and qualitative, you want to start to assemble a bit of a library or a bit of a kind of foundation for everyone to access in your company or in your team. So centralize that information is really useful. Tagging that in a clear way for anyone to find. So if you wanted all the insights around conversion, you want to be able to find that and tag that in a clear way. Dovetail, Notion, and Airtable are great tools for this, and they all have their own AI features to help, again, speed that up. So again, really effective tools that I would check out if you haven't used them so far. Much more powerful than just having loads of insights in decks and slides, and documents that aren't read and are kind of left untouched. Just an example of some of those tools that you can set up and make a lot more scalable, very popular with businesses right now. Just to summarize today, we've talked about strategic and tactical distinction of research. We talked about planning. We talked about AI enhanced capabilities of using those tools to help you with those UX processes, and then how you can use that data in a strategic way and kind of share it across the business in a scalable library. It's something that hopefully you'll be able to take on from today if you're not already, and move that forward. So there's a little bit around, yeah, I guess the way that you could put that into your roadmap. So depending if you're a designer working in teams, if you're contributing to your roadmap, it's really important to make sure you have enough time to do that research up front and to do that iteration phase. So oftentimes that's kind of a bit too packed into the roadmap. So if you're working in teams right now, I'd always advocate for you guys to push that and to showcase you have enough time to run that research. So these tools will help speed it up. We want to make sure we're calling out the problem space and the work that needs to be done still. So just going to finish today on a last kind of AI-driven case study that, again, just gives a bit more context to what we talked about. So another brief, you could just say, let's say Spotify were looking to launch a new feature to users that was leveraging their new AI personalization model. But they were really unclear, let's say, of how users want to consume these new playlists. Maybe they didn't trust them, maybe they didn't want to save them versus their own created ones. So let's just say the goal here was to create a research plan, to run some interviews and summarize the recommendations. So from the tools we talked about today, you could be using ChatGPT for the research plan, using prompts to create a script essentially from that, and then use Notebook LM as a way to summarize that research in a podcast or in a mind map. Then you could easily take that into Figma Make afterwards. So this is just a quick example of, again, using ChatGPT for research planning, help you correct that script. So from scratch, again, looking at the main features you want to look at, the habits, any kind of screeners that you might want to create. ChatGPT is great to just produce those these days. And then when you're synthesizing, again, Notebook LM is a really powerful tool to do that. Great, so that's kind of the end of the session today. I'm just going to finish off on a few things that we're doing at Crafted that are coming up that might help grow your skills, and also some events that might be of interest to you. So what we hear a lot right now from people and designers in the industry, it's really unclear on people's career paths. So people are quite unclear if they're stuck in a certain position, how they can get to their next level. Maybe people are looking for a career change from different roles into design. And also just trying to even land that next role or between positions, because the market is quite tough right now. So you're not alone if this is you. We work with a lot of designers to help them get into their next role and sort of be seen by recruiters and hiring managers. So we run career coaching. This is specifically for 3 different sessions. So we look at trying to build a CV that gets stood out on LinkedIn, found by recruiters. We work through portfolio strategy and structure to make sure you're standing out, you're building the case studies in a clear way that will help you land that role. And then we go through some frameworks around interview preparation and how to kind of negotiate the right salary for you, to making sure that you're not leaving any money on the table. So we run these sessions with a lot of designers. We normally help them find roles within 3 to 4 weeks. So it's been really helpful for some of the students we've worked with. We also have some courses that we run, so around design strategy and leadership. So half-day courses around multiple different modules. You can just check out our site if you want to learn more about those. But you'll get lifetime access to resources, live collaborative sessions. You'll get a certificate you can add to your LinkedIn profile, and you'll get access to exclusive content from Crafted. The next one coming up is actually next week on Friday. So you've got 20% exclusive discount from joining this call today, which is going to run out in 24 hours. So we have a last few spots for that course. What that covers is things from stakeholder management, leadership styles, design operations, how to build those out in businesses, small or large, to help scale teams. how to create experience principles to design to, and how to create that into a product and creative vision. So even if you're a mid-level designer, these are still really useful skills for you to learn. And we have a host of frameworks in these sessions and questions that you go through with the instructors and so on. So check that out if you're interested. Again, only for the next 24 hours, you'll get that discount. There's about 3 or 4 spaces left on that course. And if you want to hear anything more from us, sign up to our channel on Crafted. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up to our website, craftedux.co, if you want to hear any more information on those. So I'll just pop those links in the chat, but that's it for today. We can finish on a few questions if anyone has any. So I'll just leave a few minutes, but yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and I can answer them the best I can. So just pop in those links if you're interested in my courses or the YouTube channel to subscribe to get the latest on those. So I've got a question from Minnie. So let's just pull this up in front of me. So you've asked, are there any AI-based tools that allow designers to validate prototypes when working on tight timelines and don't have access to real users for testing? So really good question. So the tools that I would recommend is essentially Figma Make and Lovable, like I've shown today, for rapid prototyping. So as soon as you have the brief, I would start putting prompts in and creating something, getting that to a point where you can get some early validation to validate the flows and the content. You can also change the code and the copy on those. And then once you've got that early validation, then taking that into Figma afterwards. So that's going to really save you a lot of time earlier on. It's going to solve some of those questions around copy, around flows, usability, and then I would take that into Figma. So they're the top 2 tools. There's also one called Versal, which again is a prompt-based prototyping tool. They normally always have free accounts, or the ones that are paid are still quite reasonable. So they are based on the number of prompts that you do cost you certain credits, but if you're smart about your prompts, you'll learn how to use them in an efficient way, and you can get some really good prototypes. So they're the 3 tools I'd recommend. So Michelle's has asked, I know you're focused on design here, but do you recommend any tools or processes specific to product managers? Yeah, really good question. So the ones that I think are probably most effective, so there's ones around product requirement gathering. So I think it's called Product AI, and it helps you kind of create user stories and requirements from scratch. What I would also recommend is just using ChatGPT for that. So when you are looking to solve your next brief or project, if you try and give it prompts around like what would the user requirements be for this, how would you prioritize them, what's the market data on this information. So there's a lot of prompts templates that you can use that can share if you're interested. You can reach out that you can ask at the start of projects and using ChatGPT and Gemini. Product managers I've seen use these prototyping tools as well, and especially the user flow ones. When you're thinking about edge cases, it is really powerful to capture them early. Kit's asked, what's your preference, Lovable or Figma Make, or for fast prototyping? I would actually say Figma Make's getting better and better. It used to be Lovable, but Figma Make's getting stronger, and I guess at some point it's going to allow you to export that to Figma designs and frames, which is going to be a game changer. So yeah, I would try and bear with Figma Make right now because it's incorporated into the ecosystem of Figma. That's one I would go to. But Versal and Lovable is also interesting ones if you want something a little bit more comprehensive and a little bit more visually pleasing. You can actually import your brand guidelines into Figma Make now, so you can actually import your colors, your typography, and apply that to all of your prototypes. So that's quite powerful as a feature in there now. Cool, last question. So Matthew, is there an AI tooling available that might be able to generate brainstorm screens according to or with a design system in mind? So yeah, as I just mentioned, on Figma Make, you can import your design guidelines. So essentially your CSS, so your visuals, your colors, your typography, your spacing, and then you can apply those to your prototypes that you create in there. So it's not going to be completely 100%, but it's going to be probably 70% of your design system colors which you can then add in later, obviously with the help of engineers. So yeah, I'd look at that in the Figma Maker right now. It's really useful. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend. Bart's just asked questions, follow up on Matthew's. AI generated prototypes not being in our company's style design system makes it difficult for our colleagues to understand them. Does anyone else have experience with this or any recommendations? Yeah, so I think there's a few things. I think just with colors and typography, matching those up goes a long way. And you can just put in your prompt, as I mentioned, update to hex codes of X, or update to typography of, let's say, Open Sans, and then we'll update those. Yeah, I think where it's going is that once you update your guidelines, you can implement your components. It does use ShadCN, a lot of them, for the component libraries. So if you're in a business right now that you're building your design system out, have a look at ShadCN. It's probably one of the most popular, let's just say globally and free to access component libraries. So if you're using that in your design system in Figma, it's going to be the same components that they're using in these tools like Versal and Lovable. So you'll recognize the same accordions, the same drop downs, the same cards. So that's quite a useful kind of thing to look at if you're still working your design system and building it out and want it to match. But yeah, it's still evolving as we go and becoming more and more accurate. Great. Okay. Well, I think we can probably finish up there. Anyone's got any final questions? Hopefully you've enjoyed the session today. Stay tuned for future ones. As I mentioned, sign up to our newsletter on our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel for upcoming events. And yeah, all the best. Reach out if you have any questions, and I hope you have a nice evening, guys. Cheers. Bye.